Hello, I've returned with another ADH wealth solution. Today, we will begin to discuss fulfilling all of your financial needs. As always, this is a basic description. For an evaluation of your own, please schedule an appointment. My information is in the description. Lastly, make sure you hit the like, drop a comment, and if you're new, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you're made aware every time I release new content. Yo, 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 yo. It's your boy, the insurance junkie, your fiduciary fella, the all-star advisor, Alonzo Hall, and I've returned today to whap and tap on your head with another ADH Wealth Solutions article. Today's article is from financialtimes.com, and it's entitled, Why Bitcoin is Worse Than a Madoff-Style Ponzi Scheme. Before we go in, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you hit that like, drop a comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you're made aware every time I release new content. And as always, share, share, share. Lastly, you contribute to channel growth by donating via Cash App. You can schedule a one-on-one appointment with a licensed financial professional, or you can purchase life insurance directly up to $1 million with an instant decision and no medical exam. The links are in the description. As we proceed to give you what you need. So, why Bitcoin is worse than a Madoff-style Ponzi scheme? A Ponzi scheme is a zero-sum enterprise, but Bitcoin is a negative-sum phenomenon that you can't even pursue a claim against, argues Robert McCauley. This is a guest post by Robert McCauley, a non-resident senior fellow at Boston University's Global Development Policy Center and associate member of the Faculty of History at the University of Oxford. In this post, McCauley argues that comparing Bitcoin to a Ponzi scheme is unfair to Ponzi schemes. Bitcoin is off its all-time high of $69,000 set on November 9, 2021. It suffered a wrenching $12,000 flash crash over the first weekend in December, amid accounts of leveraged positions being closed out. And yet, even at the current price of $49,000, guests on financial TV news continue to tout it as the best performing asset of the last N years, where N can be just about any number from 1 to 10. They also increasingly judge it as a credible investment in its own right. This contradicts the long-standing skeptical view by many economists and others that what Bitcoin really is, in effect, is a Ponzi scheme. Brazilian computer scientist George Stolfi is one voice who had contended this. His view is based on the following observation. 1. Investors buy in the expectation of profits. 2. That expectation is sustained by the profits of those that cash out. 3. But there is no external source for these profits. They come entirely from new investments. 4. And the operators take away a large portion of that money. All of this rings true. But in calling Bitcoin a Ponzi scheme, critics are arguably being too kind on two counts. First, Bitcoin doesn't have the same endgame as a Ponzi scheme. Second, it constitutes a deeply negative sum game from a broad social perspective. On the first count, it's worth assessing how it compares to the original scheme devised by Charles Ponzi in 1920. Ponzi promised 50% on a 45-day investment and managed to pay this to a number of investors. He suffered and managed to survive investor runs until eventually the scheme collapsed in less than a year into it. In the largest and probably the longest running Ponzi scheme in history, Bernie Madoff paid returns of around 1% a month. He offered to cash out his scheme's participants, both the original sum invested and the return thereon. Pause. Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme was very simple. He literally just had a holding account at Chase Bank. As a result, the scheme could and did suffer a run. The great financial crisis of 2008 led to a cascade of redemptions by participants in the scheme's collapse. But the resolution of Madoff's scheme has extended beyond its collapse on account of the remarkable and ongoing legal proceedings. They have outlived Madoff himself, who died in early 2021. Many are unaware that a bankruptcy trustee, Irving H. Carr, has doggedly and successfully pursued those who took more money out of the scheme than they put in. He even managed to follow the money into offshore dollar accounts, litigating a controversial extraterritorial reach of U.S. law all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. Of the $20 billion in recognized original investments in the scheme, which the victims had been told had reached a value more than 3 times that sum, some $14 billion. A striking 70% has been recovered and distributed. Claims of up to $1.6 million are being fully repaid. By contrast to investments with Madoff, Bitcoin is bought not as an income-earning asset, but rather as a zero-coupon perpetual. In other words, it promises nothing as a running yield and never matures with a required terminal payment. It follows that it cannot suffer a run. The only way a holder of Bitcoin can cash out is by a sale to someone else. Bitcoin's collapse would look very different to that of Ponzi's or Madoff's scheme. One possible trigger could be the collapse of a big so-called stablecoin, that is, ersatz US dollars that have sprung up to provide a cash leg for cryptocurrency transactions. These unregulated money market funds have been sold as dollar stand-ins with safe assets that match their outstanding liabilities. Given the lack of regulation and disclosure, it's not hard to imagine a big stablecoin breaking the buck, as occurred with a regulated money market fund that held Lehman paper in 2008. Lehman Brothers, who was one of those banks that was too big to fail that needed the bailout from Barack Obama. This could so disrupt the whole ecology of crypto that there could be no bids for Bitcoin. The market might close indefinitely. In this event, there would be no long-running legal effort to chase down those who cashed in their Bitcoin early in order to redistribute their profits to those left holding Bitcoin for dear life. Holders of Bitcoin would have no claim on those who bought early and sold. In its cash flow, Bitcoin resembles a penny stock pump and dump scheme more than a Ponzi scheme. In a pump and dump scheme, traders acquire basically worthless stock, talk it up, and perhaps trade it among themselves at rising prices before unloading it onto those drawn in by the chatter and price action. Like the pump and dump scheme, Bitcoin taps into the pure desire for capital gains. Buyers cannot stand the sight of friends getting rich overnight. They suffer from an acute fear of missing out, FOMO. In any case, Bitcoin makes no promises and cannot end as a Ponzi scheme ends. On the second count, another big difference between Bitcoin and a Ponzi scheme is that the former is, from an aggregate or social standpoint, a negative-sum game, to the extent that the real resources are used up to make Bitcoin run. It is costly in a way that Madoff's 2- or 3-man operation was not. From the social standpoint, what Madoff took out of his scheme and finally consumed is a redistribution in a zero-sum game. The trustee sold his penthouse. Stolfi's fourth observation, above that, the operators take away a large portion of the money, lumps together Madoff's take and Bitcoin miners' revenues. But these are very different in economic terms. With Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, the game is to name the country whose electricity consumption equals that of all the puzzle solvers, miners, who get to effect transactions and receive Bitcoin in reward. Even if the electricity were priced to include its contribution to global warming, its environmental externality, which presumably it mostly is not, this represents a real cost. How big a cost? At the beginning of 2021, Stolfi put the cumulative payments to Bitcoin's miners since 2009 at $15 billion. And the then price of Bitcoin, he put the increase in this sum at about $30 million per day, which mostly pays for electricity. At today's higher Bitcoin prices, the whole is growing faster. About 900 new Bitcoin a day require most of 45 million a day in electricity. Thus, the negative sum in the Bitcoin game is in tens of billions of dollars and rising, at over $1 billion per month. If the price of Bitcoin collapses to zero, the gains of those who sold would fall short of the losses of holders by this growing sum. To liken Bitcoin to a Ponzi scheme or a pump and dump scheme, both basically redistributive, is to flatter the cryptocurrency system. To conclude, an economic analysis of Bitcoin must recognize its uniqueness in the history of manias. As an object of speculation, Bitcoin is unprecedented in the degree to which there is no there. This postmodern mania features big prices for entries on nobody's spreadsheet. A zero coupon perpetual has arrived, not as a joke, but as a $1 trillion asset. Unlike a Ponzi scheme, Bitcoin cannot end in a run. In a crash, the holders of Bitcoin will collectively have lost what they have paid the miners for their Bitcoin. This sum may be not far from the sum originally invested with Madoff after accounting for inflation. But Bitcoin holders will have no one to pursue to recover this sum. It will simply have gone up in smoke, a social loss. The holders of Bitcoin would then only wish it had been a Ponzi scheme. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the article for today. Make sure you hit that like, drop a comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you're made aware every time I release new content. And as always, share. Lastly, to contribute to channel growth, hit the Cash App. You can schedule a one-on-one appointment with a licensed financial professional, or you can purchase life insurance directly up to $1 million with no medical exam and an instant decision. With that being said, wipe ass, work in progress every day and see success, wipe ass, work in progress every day and see success, wipe ass, work in progress every day and see success. And remember, when people challenge you, they don't challenge you to challenge you, but they challenge you to challenge you. Accept the challenge. Salute. Interested in having an evaluation? Find my contact info in the description and schedule a consult to explore your options. Have a financial question but don't know who to ask? Email me at a.hall@cgwealth.financial and your question may be answered in my next video. Security products are subject to investment risks, including possible loss of principal. Before investing, carefully consider the investment objectives, risks, limitations, charges, and expenses of the product and any underlying investment options. This information can be found in the product and investment option prospectuses. Copies are available from your registered representative.